welcome back to Voices Found Repertory's Build a Bard. I'm Andy Wagner, and I'm here today to talk to you about sound design and scoring for theater. So, a little bit of background about me. I'm a 27-year-old musical artist, producer, and composer based out of Milwaukee. I've been interested in music and recording for most of my life, but I really started taking it seriously after I graduated university. I started producing under the pseudonym The Twilight and have since released like over 500 songs that I've composed and created like out on my SoundCloud page. I have a pretty eclectic discography of stuff. And then aside from, my own stuff, I've worked with Voices Found Repertory on 5 different shows. Chronologically, I worked on Macbeth in 2018, Titus Andronicus in 2018, Hand to God in 2019, Henry V in 2019, and most recently, The Elephant Man in 2020. So, as I said, today I'm going to talk to you about sound design and scoring. A little bit about my process, because from my somewhat limited understanding of theater things, I think my approach is a little different than would be typical. So I just want to talk a little bit about how I approach a theater score, and hopefully that can be useful for other composers out there. I approach it more like I'm scoring a film. So there's some interesting things that crop up because of that approach. So I just want to give a little insight into how I do my thing, as well as a lot of things that I've learned about being a good and useful and productive member of the production team, because I feel like that's extremely important to putting up a good show. So I'm also going to spend a lot of time talking about that. So, without wasting any more of your time, I'm going to jump right into it. Scoring. Let me start at the beginning. Pretty quickly after a director comes to me and is interested in working together, I want to sit down with the script and give myself a chance to read and appreciate it. I don't, as mentioned, I don't have a strong background in theater, but just like any written media form, like being able to sit and read the words yourself and interface with it and understand to the best of your ability what you're reading lets you bring your own artistic vision to the project, and I think that's important. Everybody on the design team should be able to bring a little of themselves into the process while still respecting the director's vision, because they are the kind of leader of the ship, I guess. They're the captain. Another really important part of the interfacing with the text phase, initially, and this will happen throughout the entire process, is starting to generate a cue sheet. If everything worked out perfectly for me, I would like a completely detailed cue sheet of these are all of the sounds you need, the leitmotifs that each one is supposed to have, the instrumentation for each one, and all the different sound effects, and like everything as early as possible. That just gives me a nice checklist of like, I need to make sure I get all of these different things done. And then when that cue sheet gets shared with the rest of the design team, everybody's on the same page and knows what we're expecting at the end. And then I can work off of that cue sheet and start making demos, and then bring them to rehearsal as soon as possible. Get actors hearing them and kind of used to them. Get feedback, make edits. Getting your ideas blocked out early on, I think, is really helpful. One useful thing that cue sheets allow me to do is I can start to figure out commonalities between scenes. It's useful for helping to plan out which characters would benefit from having a leitmotif and what scenes those leitmotifs should show up in. For those of you who might not be familiar with what a leitmotif is, it's like a theme, right? A musical idea that you can hear multiple times, and it kind of connects back to the same character or idea or place, emotion, something like that. And the benefit for me as a producer artist is at the end of it, I have like a whole album worth of music that I get to share with people. Um, which is great because I hope that it has made the show better. And then what I think is pretty cool is, years later now, I can go back and listen to the Macbeth score, and like I can relive the show in my head, because I made certain cues that like time out with what's happening on stage. Um, Themes I'm like, oh, I can remember this actor really nailing it this one night and when this part happened, and like I I don't know, I think that's the same way that a lot of people can appreciate movie scores. So I'm going to switch gears now, and I want to talk about some of the things that I've learned about being good a good part of the design team. Like I said pretty early on, like stay organized. Being organized, I know it's easier for some people than others, but if you have the ability to keep yourself organized and on pace, on schedule, always working on something useful and like getting it out to the rest of your team for feedback, um, that's real important. It helps when people know they can rely on you and they can trust you to get done what needs to get done, especially when it's crunch time. Early on, once you've got your cue list, try to figure out which cues are going to require the most kind of syncing with action on stage. A great example would be like a fight scene. Uh, if you're going to have your fight choreographer designing a really cool fight, it'd be super cool if the music could sync up with it, um, as best as possible, obviously, because um, it's not like you can score to a defined picture like you would for a movie, where it's like I know exactly when this is going to happen every single time. But with enough repetitions, actors can do a pretty good job of syncing up with music, which I think just makes the fight so much cooler, right? Um, anyway, though, like try to figure out which cues are going to be the hardest to make work really well in the final production, and try to focus some time on working on those early, getting demos out to the rest of the team. Um, and as I had mentioned earlier, I like to be at rehearsals, for a number of reasons, but one of them specifically is that I can then bring these I can bring my music to the cast and crew, and we can try scenes with the music early, um, rather than surprising people with something they've never heard before and maybe throwing off vibes during tech. Um, I know that can be a difficult thing for actors to adjust to, rightfully so. Um, so, trying to be transparent with what you're working on and keeping yourself organized and honest so that you're bringing something useful to each rehearsal. I like to be at rehearsals because I get to be a part of the play coming together organically, actors finding their characters, the director honing in on their vision for different scenes. All of that, and like in general, like the vibes and energy in the room, um, all of that helps inform me what the score is supposed to sound like, if that makes sense. Expect a lot of things to go wrong, especially during tech. Um, you know, you can try making up a cue and it runs really, really well all through rehearsal, and then you get to tech and actors pick up the pace a little bit, and all of a sudden your cue is way too long, which sometimes is fine. You can just kind of fade it off. But otherwise, if a lot of the core musical ideas that you had in that cue get lost, because maybe they happened towards the end of this particular scene, that's not what you want as the composer, and it's no longer serving the show in the best way possible. So in an instance like that, I have to go back to the drawing board and adjust that cue, um, cut stuff in that case. And my very last closing point is, um, make sure that your score, your music, your sound design is always serving what's best for the show. That is that is what you were hired to do, and that is the most important part. As much creative freedom as you can get in there and kind of personal fulfillment, that's awesome. And hopefully you have a product at the end that you're proud of and can share with anybody who, might follow your music, but ultimately you need to do what's best for the show. Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow, but you're part of a team, and you have to make sure that as a member of that team, you're doing everything you can to make the best product at the end of it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that I've given you something that's at least a little interesting or useful, thought-provoking. You know, that that's the best I can hope for, I suppose. Um, I definitely feel free to reach out in the comments section of this video. Ask ask me any questions you might have. I'd be happy to jump in the comments section and offer whatever extra knowledge I can. And then I guess as a little self-promotion, I've made a playlist on my SoundCloud page, compiling all of the music that I've done for Voices Found Repertory. So you can check that out in the description below. And then other than that, I just want to thank Voices Found Repertory for bringing me into the family, about 2 years ago, and for giving me this opportunity to talk to some of our fans about what I do.